Pranam to everyone. Today is the third day of IKS TKDL workshop on traditional knowledge, intellectual property, and people's right. So today we have Dr. Vijaya Lakshmi Asthana ji. So she will talk about how we can protect traditional knowledge. Two dimension. One is defensive, another is positive. So I request you from IKS from the behalf of IKS division. I request you, ma'am, please start your presentation. Pranam. And before that, we can start with a small invocation. Om सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, ma'am. Please share your PPT, please. You are muted, ma'am. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sharing it. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes.
So, namaskar to everyone. Very good afternoon. So, I'm here with you for the first time today. So, I'll be speaking on protection of traditional knowledge, defensive and positive. I'll also give you an overview of the traditional knowledge digital library. In general, I'll speak in English, but जिनको भी इसकी जानकारी हिंदी में चाहिए होगी तो आप मुझे प्लीज वहीं पे रोक के एक बार पूछ लीजिएगा. I can, to the extent possible, मैं उसका अनुवाद हिंदी में कर दूंगी. I hope that arrangement is okay. Yeah, thank you. So let me start from the basics, क्योंकि अभी हम traditional knowledge यानी कि पारंपरिक ज्ञान के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. So we will start with the definition of traditional knowledge, right? So what do we mean by traditional knowledge? इसके बारे में जो हम जानते हैं, कुछ हद तक we all are aware कि traditional knowledge is some sort of intergenerational knowledge which is transferred from one generation to other, from parent to son, son to grandson, and so on and so forth. But what does this type of knowledge contain? What are the things that we include in traditional knowledge? And what all come under the category of traditional knowledge? What are the sources? These are some of the things that I wanted to start with. Yeah. And then I thought I will proceed with the rest of the talk. I think, Fatima, I saw your message. I speak in English. Wherever anybody wants to needs any more information, or they want me to translate something in Hindi, I will do so as per requirement. Okay. Thank you. So the traditional knowledge doesn't have any kind of formal definition or accepted definition. So the definition generally quoted in an organization like the World Intellectual Property, which deals with the traditional knowledge information and deals with protecting traditional knowledge, has a working definition. The working definition is that know-how, skills, practices, which are developed, sustained, passed from generation to generation within a community, and often forming an important part of its cultural and spiritual identity. This is very important because whenever we talk of traditional knowledge, it is not simply some kind of scientific or technological knowledge. So, you have something in written and then it is just that merely that particular knowledge. ठीक है डॉक्टर यादव, मैं बीच बीच में हिंदी में भी बोल दिया करूंगी, लेकिन कुछ आपको अगर स्पेसिफिकली पूछना हो तो प्लीज पूछ लीजिएगा. So when I talk of cultural and spiritual identity, ये it is inbuilt and it is completely intertwined with the particular traditional knowledge information. Okay, so when we talk about traditional knowledge, what does it include? This is usually intellectual, intangible cultural heritage. Now, by intangible, I mean something that is not measurable, something which is not physical. Intellectual, like in intellectual, जो बौद्धिक संपदा हम जिसको कहते हैं, उस तरीके से बौद्धिक और intangible cultural heritage, whatever that is all traditional knowledge. So these practices, knowledge systems of traditional communities, including indigenous and local communities. And what can it be? This could be agricultural knowledge, scientific and technical knowledge, ecological knowledge. We all know that all the people who are living in an ecosystem closely associated with nature completely understand nature and lead their lives accordingly. Because of that, they have a great depth and great treasure of ecological knowledge. And our ancestors have been living closely associated with the nature, which is why we have so much of information in our ancient, जो हमारे शास्त्रों में लिखा है. So, I'm sorry. Then biodiversity related knowledge, जैसे पौधे हैं, औषधीय पौधे हैं, all this information is also available with the various communities, individuals, so on and so forth. Then the other thing we wanted to talk about is, where do we get all this kind of information? Okay, so there are secondary sources. What do we mean by secondary sources? Secondary sources मतलब पुस्तकें जो लिखित में हो, कहीं पे प्रकाशित हो. So these are published information. It could be new text, old text, manuscripts. आपने सभी ने सुना होगा पांडुलिपियों के बारे में. So it could be recorded in any form, manuscript. The problem with all this kind of secondary sources is one thing, availability and accessibility, and languages. We all know India has so many languages. Many people don't even understand. तो यहीं पे हमारी बात हो रही है कि हम हिंदी में भी उसका अनुवाद करें और इंग्लिश में भी. So we can understand there are a big diverse group of Indians who speak different languages. So accessibility and language are the one important component of the secondary sources in which these ancient texts are written. The other source is the primary source. What are primary sources? Primary sources are individuals, communities, families, knowledge holders and knowledge contributors. मतलब समुदाय, परिवार, individuals जिनके पास ये ज्ञान है. So these we will include as primary sources, wherein we call this as oral traditional knowledge. That is something which is transferred from one generation to another. उन्हीं के पास है, कहीं लिखा हुआ नहीं है. It is not written anywhere. So these are all primary sources. It may be recorded, but it may be available to other people, or sometimes most often not available to other people. So in traditional knowledge, we will include many traditional products, knowledge about harvesting, for instance, जैसे फसल कटाई की बात हो, ethnobotanical information, construction, water harvesting, the cultural traditions, संस्कृति की बातें, musical instruments, वाद्य, जैसे these are all traditional knowledge. Okay? And what I mean by sources, स्रोत की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे, so secondary sources, और जो मूल्य सोर्स है वो खुद लोग हैं जिनसे ये इंफॉर्मेशन पाया जाता है. So currently in India, we have two types of information. As I mentioned, जो primary sources है, they may be oral, not written anywhere. But जो secondary sources है, they are written. उनको हम codified knowledge बोलते हैं. So it's like it is already written and available in the form of text. So we have classical and traditional manuscripts and text. If you see the expanse of information that is available in India, it is enormous in various languages. For instance, in TKDL, we work on Indian systems of medicine. मतलब हम ये दवाइयों के बारे में जो इंडिया के systems of medicine है, जैसे आयुर्वेद, यूनानी, सिद्धा, सोवारिकपा, इनकी जानकारी हम इकट्ठा करते हैं in TKDL. So this kind of information is available in various languages. For instance, Siddha is available in Tamil, the Unani is available in Arabic, Persian, and Urdu. Sovarikpa is available in Boti. Ayurveda is available in various languages like Sanskrit, Malayalam, Marathi, Telugu, so on and so forth. Siddha in Tamil, as I already mentioned. Similarly, we also have manuscripts. India has the Ministry of Culture, and under the Ministry of Culture, we have a organization which is the National Mission for Manuscripts. If you go to them, you would notice they have documented 43.16 lakh manuscripts. You can imagine how much this is. Hare Krishna, do you want to ask something? Or should I continue? Piyush ji, are they allowed to ask questions in between? I would not mind.
Yes, ma'am.
If anybody wishes to stop me and ask, it's all right. I can continue with it.
No, we can. You can complete the lecture, then we can discuss na question and answer. That would be nice.
All right, Piyush. So I'll do it that way only. So National Mission for Manuscripts has got digitized several lakhs of pages, and this is in various languages. और ऐसे भी manuscripts हैं जिनकी भाषा आज के दौर पे बहुत लोग जानते भी नहीं हैं. So they are languages which have to be converted into the normal spoken language as today, and then only understood. And many of the Oriental libraries in India are actually working on these manuscripts also. But there are very few people. So if you see, there are still thousands of manuscripts which are lying scattered in various collections all over India, still untranslated and still inaccessible to people. The oral tribal knowledge or folk knowledge that I spoke about, it is available with various communities and indigenous populations that is present in India. For instance, India has a very large tribal population, जो हम आदिवासी जनजातियां बताते हैं, तो 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा आदिवासी हैं इंडिया में. So this large indigenous population has lot of information with them. Okay, as I said, they're close to nature, observe things. बहुत सारी चीजें जो वो they imbibe in their own life is learned from nature. Like for instance, how does an animal save itself from a cut? What kind of leaves or what kind of medicines it takes or applies? These are all things that they have learned through observing nature. And this observations from nature, they have put it into practice, and this is all part of their oral traditional knowledge. So potential they have to provide sustainable solutions to various problems. You know, the beauty of Adivasis and their living style is their living is completely sustainable. They do not destroy their ecosystem. What they practice, अगर एक पौधा आज खत्म होगा, तो उसकी जगह और एक पौधा लगा देंगे. It is not like it is destroyed. So it is a continuous process, a sustainable living that they practice, which we as urban people fail to practice, but this is a part of their ingrained nature. So in the process, they have created a lot of knowledge on agricultural productivity, soil quality, biodiversity loss, water scarcity, pollution, and so on. Although this knowledge may or may not be disclosed. तो इसमें क्या हो सकता है? This information could be secret. मतलब सिर्फ उस समुदाय या उसी परिवार के पास होगा, किसी तीसरे व्यक्ति के पास ये जानकारी मौजूद नहीं होगा. So that is the kind of information that we are talking about, which is also a very large part of the traditional knowledge information that we are talking about. So we come to why do we need to protect traditional knowledge? Okay, like I said, I'm going to discuss the various forms of protecting knowledge, that is traditional knowledge, but primarily why is the need? इसकी आवश्यकता क्या है कि हम इस पारंपरिक ज्ञान को इसको सुरक्षित रखना है. So as I said, traditional science and technology, there is a lot of information. Folk treatment, folk medicines, dairy products, methods of agriculture, seed technology, metallurgy, architecture, tool making, ornaments, even in folk, artistic folklore. एक तरीके का पारंपरिक ज्ञान in the sense it is a sure shiny. I'll continue in English. And the performing arts, non-performing arts like dance, like painting, sculpture, embroidery, carpet making, all these are also traditional knowledge. But we need to protect this. It's very important that we protect it. Why? Because in the case of traditional knowledge, it is not like other kinds of property. Traditional knowledge, as I said, is available with individuals, communities, and such people. So how do we identify ownership? So when we protect traditional knowledge, all this information will get recorded. So who is this knowledge available with? Is it with a person? Is it with a community? Is it with a group of people or from different states? All this will get identified. Another thing is, most important thing is often such information has economic value. Okay, so this having economic value, a lot of times it has been observed that this gets misappropriated. Misappropriated means somebody will take it without the knowledge of the knowledge holder. In the sense, they will take it from the person without the person's consent. So this kind of misappropriation has happened in the past, continues to happen. Okay. So by protecting traditional knowledge, we will be able to stop these things from happening. Another thing is, by recording or protecting traditional knowledge, one important thing will be you can protect the cultural and spiritual identity. Often when people take such knowledge, they forget that there is an associated spiritual identity with it. So often they will take that information and ignore it completely. But this is a sort of insult or disrespect of the information of the knowledge holder, which should not happen. Another thing is, the person who has contributed should be acknowledged. Like for instance, if you take information from somebody and publish it in a book, and you don't even acknowledge that person, you don't know, you have published it as if you have only written the whole thing and it was your knowledge. But you would have actually gained it from someone else. This is completely unethical, but it does happen. So when we protect traditional knowledge, this is one way of ensuring that there is attribution. Another thing is compensating the person who has shared the knowledge. This is something called benefit sharing. Benefit sharing means if you take it, create some commercial value product out of it, and gain some monetary benefit, then you should give something back to the person or the knowledge holder from whom you have taken. Most importantly, every traditional knowledge or traditional cultural expression is associated with their livelihood. For instance, a carpet making, design, particular ways of weaving saris or particular ways of weaving shawls. Now, these patterns and all, if you notice, are very distinctive in each community. That is their livelihood. Why would you go and buy it from there? Because it's very distinctive, very unique. Now, another designer comes, just copies that and creates a line of their own and sells it for lakhs. What does the person earn? Nothing. His livelihood is also lost because somebody is mass producing it, sometimes maybe at a cheaper rate. He doesn't get anything out of it. Okay. So it's important, by protecting such traditional knowledge, it is important to protect the livelihood of the person. And most importantly, this all should be done with the due prior informed consent. So by protecting, we are ensuring that prior informed consent, यानी उस जिसने भी ये जानकारी दी है उनकी अनुमति है. Okay, so prior informed consent means you have taken the consent from the person who has shared the knowledge with you. Okay, so what do we mean by biopiracy? It's a technical term. It is used very often, if you will notice, in articles related to traditional knowledge. It simply means taking some form of IP ownership. It may be patent, it may be trademarks, it may be copyright, anything of the knowledge without the consent of the person from whom you're taking, that is a knowledge holder, and creating commercial benefit out of it. Okay, so this includes rights to genetic resources, knowledge, and it is assumed by wrongful exploitation of the indigenous knowledge and biodiversity. And again, no compensation or recognition is given to the person who has shared the knowledge. So this is what we mean by biopiracy. In India, there are several examples of biopiracy. You may have heard of these examples. For instance, there was a patent on turmeric way back in 1995, where for the wound healing properties of turmeric, somebody took a patent in the US Patent Office. They were Indians, no doubt, but the patent got granted. Now, turmeric for wound healing, this we know. Our grandmother has taught us, you have a cut, take a paste of haldi and apply it on it. It is an antiseptic. Your wound will get healed. But they got a patent for it. What does that mean? If it is patented, you cannot use it. Okay? You cannot market a product. You cannot use it. That is what a patent means. This was later on revoked after a very long fight. But why did it get patented in the first place? Because that information was available in some ancient text, in some language, which was not available in English. And so the examiner sitting in patent office did not know that such information existed. So he did not know that this information or this knowledge is not novel. It's not new. He thought it is something that these people have invented, and so he gave them the patent. Similarly, there are several examples like rice lines of basmati, the fungicidal properties of neem. All these have been used by us. yet they got patented. Okay. Very recent example is this Kilta-based device for agricultural produce, where they hold it and add their produce to that and carry it. So there was an invention based on this, a litigation filed in 2005, and it has been pending for 13 years. So you can imagine all these things go to court. It's a long-driven battle, and by the time they get revoked, lots of money and time is spent on these things. Okay, so what is important when such things are happening? We need to protect the traditional knowledge. So there are two ways of protecting. What we call as defensive protection and positive protection. What is defensive protection? Defensive protection is creating a set of strategies to ensure that parties do not gain illegitimate or unfounded IP rights. अवैध अधिकार कोई और न ले ले, इसके लिए हम ये इस तरीके की डिफेंसिव सुरक्षा का उपयोग कर सकते हैं. Right? So when the traditional knowledge, traditional cultural expression, and even associated genetic resources for this kind of defensive protection, one example is documentation. I will show you other examples also. So this is one way of protecting. What is the other way of protecting? Giving positive protection. Positive protection means what? उनको कोई अधिकार दिया जाए. That is, to give them a right which they can present before a court and stop other people from misappropriating it. That is empowering the person who has the knowledge to promote as well as protect their traditional knowledge. Okay. For this, what we need national and international law. Okay. Some sort of sui generis system, that is a legal system which will solely protect traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expression holders and allow them recourse in the courts, for instance. Okay. But the only problem here is India does not have a national law at present. Also, internationally discussions have been going on, but as yet there is no law. But there are several examples of defensive protection I want to point out, and most important amongst that being the traditional knowledge digital library, Paramparik Gyan Digital Pustakalaya. Okay. So defensive protection examples, there are several, as I told you. For instance, the central councils of which are under the Ministry of Ayush have got out several compendiums, that is information from texts which contain medicinal plant information, as is what is the plant, what it is used for, sort of monograph for all this kind of information. Similarly, ICMR has also got a lot of information, ethnomedical plants of Western Ghats. Even if you open the Ministry of Tribal Affairs website, you will notice they have actually showcased cultural heritage of many states. So they are in the form of books. You can open them and have a look. It will be about their traditional crafts, arts, also about the plants that are available, traditional people information, knowledge information, such kind of information is available. All these are ways of protecting traditional knowledge because now you have put it in a place where people can see. So this sort of gives the people an idea, this knowledge is already known, it is existing, and no one can gain any sort of illegitimate rights over them. Okay, I'm giving you all these examples. You all can just go and have a look at the website. For instance, the National Medicinal Plant Board is also comes in the Ministry of Ayush, and they have got several plant names, like over 7,000 botanical names. The botanical names and vernacular names. Now, this is the important thing of such databases. What are vernacular names? जो local regional languages पे नाम जो available है. For instance, the lady's finger, you would call it as bhindi in Hindi. You would call it as vendakya in Tamil. You would call it something else in some other language. But then what happens is the local community knows that information. But if you say have the same information projected somewhere, an English-speaking person will not understand. But if you put the vernacular term over there or the botanical name over there, then it is a modern scientific term which everybody will understand. So correlating such information and having such databases is very useful in the form of a documented database for defensive protection of such information. Okay. We also have other portals like the NVIS portal on medicinal plants, Honeybee Network. I wanted to show you this slide is because these are several foundations which are working with grassroots innovators. Okay, these people work directly with those tribal people, the people who are innovating at the grassroots level, help them either gain patent right or protect their information through documentation so that the knowledge remains there and does not get taken away by somebody else. Also, there is an inventory of agriculture by Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR. Now, I come to the main portion of the documentation that I am talking about. That is the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, which I work for. Okay. One thing I want to point out here is we have a Patents Act in India. Now, in the Patents Act, there are several non-patentable subject matter which is mentioned in the Section 3 of the Act, of which one is the traditional knowledge, which is in effect an aggregation or duplication of such properties, which is per se, that is just traditional, merely traditional knowledge which is known and available is not patentable. Yet, you will find that such information gets patented. Why? Because as I told you, this information is not available in a language and is not accessible to the patent examiner in the form of a prior art. Prior art means what? Prior art means the set of information that a patent examiner will check to see whether the information or the innovation that is in the patent application is new or not, which is a necessary criteria for grant of patent. Okay. So the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, when it was created way back in 20 years ago, in 2001, was a database, was a prior art database of information containing Indian systems of medicine. Okay, why Indian systems of medicine? I showed you examples. Misappropriation in Indian systems of medicine was taking place to a large extent. Why? It had economic value. Okay, so this was chosen as an area of immediate attention. Okay, so we selected Indian systems of medicine and started working on them. But this is a database, not merely, we don't scan books. It's not that we just scan books and put it and you are just getting images of the text. What is done here is a value-added database. All information that is available in the database, that is in the ancient text, is converted into modern language. Correlation is created with modern language, and it is in a very structured, easily searchable, easily retrievable manner. This has been converted to something which we call a traditional knowledge resource classification. So we have a large set of people working with us. They are all practitioners of Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Yoga, Sovarikpa, who understand the languages, understand the practice. They codify this information and put it into a computer, and the information comes out in 5 different languages, including English. That is French, German, Japanese, and Spanish. We provide this information to patent offices only. Right now, this is not available as an open database. And we also file something called third-party observations. I'll give you a brief glimpse of this. This is basically as a complementary method, an additional method, besides providing information as prior art, so that patent examiners know that this information is already available. What is the useful thing about this third-party observation? What we do is we find out the patent applications which are filed on Indian traditional knowledge. Then we pick out information from TKDL, which actually shows that this information is already known, and present that information to the examiner. So he will go through that information, see that this is already there, send it to the applicant for him to present his side of the story. In case the examiner is convinced that it is indeed known information, he would reject that patent. So in such a manner, by presenting such third-party observations, 324 cases, revocation, amendment, withdrawal, or abandonment of the patent application have been achieved. Okay, so this is the site of the TKDL. And as I said, we have information on Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Sovarikpa, and Yoga. So this is the kind of screen that our people work on. So what they do is they put information about the book from which the information is being taken. They will codify it in a manner that each of the information is available. They work with something called, each of them, they call it a formulation. What does the formulation contain? The ingredients, how they are prepared, what form of the plant, for instance, is used, how much of it is taken, how it is administered to a patient, and if it is administered with some other ingredient like anupan hai, yeah, some sort of vehicle is there like ghee or some other additive element, all those things are also indicated. And finally, for what it is used, which disease it cures. Okay, All this information is written, and finally, the book from which it is taken is also mentioned. And when you write the book's name, we also put the image of the book. So all the things are available. Piyush, is there anything you want to say? Piyush, is it going on okay?
Yes, please proceed.
All right, all right. So these are some of the examples I wanted to show you of the prior art that I was talking about. To the far left, it is Malayalam. The top one, where is Hattarasnavali is written. This is a Sanskrit text. The lower text again is Soarikpa. This is written in Boti language. So we have people working with all these language texts. This is again Tamil and this is Persian. So finally, the information that is available in TKDL is in the format that I have shown you in front of you. So in this, there is a title which indicates what is the formulation, what is the knowledge available, that for instance, it is known since 100 years. How do we know that it is known since 100 years? From the age of the author, from the time that the book is written. Okay. Then we write the details of the formulation, the therapeutic composition. Like for instance, here we have written the plant name. We have written how many grams of it is taken. Okay, and then how it is prepared and what it is given for. Like here, it is given as a gargling method for tonsillitis, and where it is published. The advantage of the traditional knowledge digital library is that we have all systems of medicine. So what happens here is when we are giving a code for a particular word, you would be able to see from the traditional knowledge digital library not only the common name, not only the Ayurveda name, not only the Siddha name, also the botanical name. So people understanding it in different languages, in different systems of medicine, all these things will now come on one platform. You would see that an Ayurveda practitioner doesn't know much about Sovarikpa or Siddha. They know only about their own system of medicine. But through the TKDL, it would be possible for them to understand other systems of medicine, to understand whether the same plant is used for another indication, for the same indication, what are the commonalities, what are the differences between the various systems of medicine. So that way, this TKDL is a greatly value-added database. Similarly, we have also developed correlation for disease names. Okay, so from the disease name, you will be able to see for Siddha description, Unani description, English name, and so on and so forth. For instance, right now I'm suffering from dry cough, so I know it is called Shushtuka in Ayurveda, and then Varat Irmal in Siddha. Okay, these kind of things for headache, appendicitis, all these things. So a normal medicinal doctor will also understand these terms. Okay. Right now, the traditional knowledge digital library contains more than 4.5 lakh formulations. This is taken from over 500 books. Okay. Right now, we are also working on other systems of other than systems of medicine, traditional agricultural practices and tools, traditional metallurgy. Also, within the systems of medicine, other than formulations, we are also looking at diagnostic devices, tools, practices, surgical methods. You will know there is also we have other practices in Ayurveda, like the massage technique, you have this Nasya technique, you have Panchakarma technique. So all these things are also be added. And we all know about Sushruta Samhita. Okay, thousands of years ago, they have spoken about the surgical methods in the traditional text. So this information also we are including. As I mentioned, right now, this information we have got cabinet approval for sharing with other people, and soon we are setting up the modality, and at some point of time we may be sharing all this information through subscription model with people other than the patent offices too. Okay, and in the watch and monitor system that I already mentioned, where we submit TKDL evidences, we have already achieved successes in about 324 cases. Okay. This is just an example I have put here. For instance, this is a herbal composition for management of treatment of joint pain and muscle pain, where they use, see the way they write the claim, okay? They would not write it directly, like they would not mention the plant name. They would take it the ingredient. They will not claim the actual plant name, but they would mention it somewhere in the text. So you will have to read the text carefully, understand what plant they are using, what extraction they are taking, and connect that extract to the particular plant and then present the evidences. So here we know that they have taken Bakuchiol for inflammatory disorder, and we know that the Bakuchiol is taken from Allium sativum, and there are other things which are, they're using different plants for it. Okay, and then we present evidence, and in this case, the outcome was that the traditional cited knowledge, although they do not specify the chemical constituents, but it is understood that they are from the plant, and therefore those claims were rejected. Okay. Similarly, I have also put another example, which is from the USPTO, where Tephrosia purpurea was used for chronic diarrhea, and this knowledge was already available in the traditional knowledge. We presented to the USPTO, and the examiner rejected the claim based on the evidences from traditional knowledge. Okay. Just to give you some other examples of documentation, there are several forms of documentation. I have put all these things in the slide. You all can go, and when I share the presentation, you all can go through all these things. Okay. So there are databases on Chinese medicine, the Korean knowledge portal, the Philippines traditional knowledge digital library, medicinal herbs and plant database. But here we have to note that none of them are as comprehensive, as detailed, and as structured as the traditional knowledge digital library. In India, there is also another documentation process going on. I told you that in the traditional knowledge digital library, we are taking textual information, that is information which is available in our traditional text. But there is also another exercise going on, which is from the National Biodiversity Authority, which is under the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, where they are collecting information from the people, the one I spoke about as primary source of information. So there is a biodiversity management committee at the village level, panchayat level, who go to the people, collect the information. They also have it in a structured format in the form of some sheet where they take down the information, including the name of the person, then the complete ecological information. And one component is also the traditional knowledge that is associated with the biodiversity. This is a very small component. Major component of the National Biodiversity Authority and the Biodiversity Management Committee is to collect information on genetic resources. TKDL is also working with the National Biodiversity Authority to see whether this information can also be included in a structured manner in the TKDL database. Okay. So I will just put in a nutshell what are the advantages and disadvantages of a defensive protection. Okay. We have advantages. As I told you, this will stop wrong patents from being granted. Because you're presenting the evidence, it is already known, patents will not get granted. Maybe other IPR forms of IPR also. Another important thing is it will preserve valuable heritage. Now we're converting it into some form which is understandable by others and digitizing it. So even if those texts get destroyed, this information is still available because this has been scanned, and this will preserve valuable heritage for generations to come in some format which is not indestructible, but maybe we can keep on upgrading it to a format which can be preserved for a long time, and also helps in identifying knowledge. But what are the concerns? See, whenever I talk about the advantages, I must also highlight the concerns. It is completely readily accessible. I told you, in the text of Ayurveda, you would only get Ayurveda. In Siddha, you will get only Siddha. But the way we have structured this information, it is readily accessible in a form which is understandable by all. So one concern is, will this trigger more misappropriation? Another thing is, when we record information, like for instance, I mentioned about PBR, there is a People's Biodiversity Register where they're taking information from people per se. Are they taking prior informed consent? Okay. Then information control. Who is the custodian? Who will be the owner of such information? The extent of access. Okay, should we maintain this information confidential, or we should allow it to be seen by all? Safeguarding information. I told you we are putting it in a digital form, but you also know how easy it is to hack or do things nowadays. The technological advances have made it easy for a lot of things. Now, if you had a book somewhere in a lock and key in some corner of a place, it would be very difficult to access it. But the same thing when it is available in some digital form, maybe in the internet, maybe in a safe place, still the accessibility portion sort of gets easier. So safeguarding that information, all kinds of ICT tools need to be implemented to keep that information. It is possible, but this have to be kept in mind while making such information accessible or recording such information. Okay. Then genetic resources, the access need not be physical. We all know about the digital sequence information. So in case it is not even physical, it is very easily accessible. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. The latter portion of my presentation is on the positive protection. As I already told you, we don't have any exclusive law for protection of traditional knowledge in India. Okay. Also, the existing forms of intellectual property cannot protect traditional knowledge. Why? Traditional knowledge is not novel. Naya nahi hai. Although it may have some kind of dynamicity, it keeps on evolving, it's still not new. Okay. Then it is community owned. You cannot find a single owner for it. All right. So these are challenges in providing positive protection through intellectual property. So can patents protect them? Can copyrights protect them? Can designs protect them? Plant variety protection. Now, why I put plant variety protection here? Plant variety protection is a form of right, also an IP right. Okay, this is also Bodhik Sampada, but this plant protection is given for varieties of plants. Okay, which you are able to show are distinct, unique, sustainable. What are geographical indications? Geographical indications again is in relation to goods. They're indicators of quality of a particular product or any kind of, like this is given for even food products like laddu. It is given for products like saris. It is given for products like Aranmula Kannadi, which is a particular form of mirror which is only brought from a particular place in Kerala. So geographical indications are like brand quality indicators which are from a specific territory. Okay, can these protect traditional knowledge? These are all very big questions. Okay, so I'm just wanting to indicate there are some existing rights, okay, some existing frameworks in India which could sort of partially protect traditional knowledge and people's rights. Okay, one is, I said, geographical indications. There may be some forms of, like for instance, I said the Aranmula Kannadi. Okay, that is a mirror making technique. It is not a glass, it's polished metal. Okay, which is done only in that particular place. It will look like a mirror, feel like a mirror, everything, but it is a metal surface. Okay, and it is done by a particular set of people in a particular place. So this is protected by geographical indication. So it gives it a quality value, but this does not protect the underlying method of how the mirror finish is created. Okay, so that underlying traditional knowledge is not protected, but the product itself is protected. Similarly, industrial design maybe protect some part of the traditional knowledge. So also copyright, where you have musical form. A lot of traditions in India is through musical form, or maybe a play, an act, certain music, certain instruments, where from you will get certain musical notes. Such things could be possibly protected by copyright. Plant variety protection, I already told you, and the Biological Diversity Act. Now, Biological Diversity Act does two things. One, it protects the information from getting access. It has certain provisions for providing permission when you are taking information from people. So, access, and also has some provisions for benefit sharing. That is, if somebody takes information from a knowledge holder and has commercial benefit out of it, there is a percentage and a calculation given in the law by means of which they have to give back to the community or the knowledge. Okay. Also, through the NBA, they collect this information in people's biodiversity. Similarly, the forest rights or a forest dwelling scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dweller act, they also give some rights to the people. Okay. So, for instance, a tribal person living in the forest has the right for land holding, exploitation, habitation of the forest, also some forest management rights to protect, preserve, also conserve that ecology. Okay, so these protection is given in the Forest Rights Act. The Forest Rights Act, I mean the One Adhikar Kanun. Similarly, the geographical indication is Bhogolic, the Sanke. Okay, so these are two of the things that you can, though very partially, not really the underlying information, but yeah, some sort of protection. The other thing I wanted to discuss was there are international efforts for binding, legally binding regime to protect TKs and TCUs. Okay, but this is an ongoing process. It has been going for several years, decades. No consensus has been reached. Okay, what they are trying to do is create an international regime by means of which this traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expressions can be protected. So there are 193 countries under the World Intellectual Property Organization who are negotiating this particular act. But I mean, the binding regime, to so to speak. It's not an act because it is not even agreed whether it's going to be legally binding or no. Why we need this? Because a national law is only territorial, so it will have limited impact. Where there is recognition and acceptance at an international level, it would have more impact. So that is why India is also greatly pushing for such an international regime. It will address that commercial interest, that is the increased commercial use, the misappropriation that we spoke about, and establish some minimum standards for protection. So in this we have the Intergovernmental Committee, which is working under the aegis of the World Intellectual Property Organization, and they are having discussions for instruments for traditional knowledge in TCE. What is the purpose of such laws or such regimes? To empower the committee. We all know there is a lot of information, tribal people are there, they themselves don't know their rights, okay? Forget them demanding for benefit sharing. They don't know their rights, they are not empowered, they are not aware. So through such laws, to empower them, okay, protect their livelihood, promote traditional knowledge, control access and commercial exploitation, not allow them to be taken away by some commercial entity who would not allow the original knowledge holder to even use his own information, and enhance research and development. This is an important aspect because there is a treasure of information, and through R&D and going in a new manner with the new scientific knowledge that we know, we may be able to create a scientific breakthrough. Okay, so in this way also we will be able to use traditional knowledge that is protected through a legally binding regime. So this is all that I wanted to present in my talk. If there are any questions, I will take them now. I'll stop sharing my screen, Piyushji. Thank you so much. Thank you for a very patient listening.
Thank you, madam, for your informative lecture, for unveiling our treasure about traditional knowledge and how we can protect the traditional knowledge. So we request our participants, if you have any queries, please raise your hand. I will unmute one by one. Yes. One second. Yes. Dr. Anamika Chauhan ji, please ask your question. Next one. Namaste Sadhana ji. Could you please ask your question?
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening, sir, and all co-participants. Ma'am, this is Sadhana Pandey from Gwalior, from Autonomous College. I'm in botany, ma'am. I want to say that when we discuss traditional knowledge, especially ethnobotany or ethnobiology, we miss this taxonomical portion in teaching. So I think this is very important. So how this can be integrated, and that should be a part of this IKS and TKDL. But students they are not very much aware with the taxonomy of the plants, ma'am. So what can be done? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. For instance, in traditional knowledge library, in the TKDL, you would have noticed that we also have the botanical names. Okay, so we include the taxonomic information. Now the thing is, this is a very interdisciplinary thing. If you go to the tribals or you go to the people who actually have this knowledge, you and I understand that they will not be able to give you the botanical name. So what we do is generally sit with the Ayurveda practitioners along with taxonomists. They sit together, read the text. We also have language experts at times because they do not understand what is exactly written. We have language experts. We have people sit together and they are, discuss and come out with the botanical name. That is the way that we do it in TKDL. There is also another thing I wanted to inform you about. This is done by FRLHT. What they do is they are having some small courses for, they call it training for as village botanists. Okay, so what they do is they train in a small way for a short period of time. They give them training to understand plant names and all, because FRLHT is doing significant work in the taxonomy and botanical region. So they take these people, show them the plants, then explain how these taxonomic names are given, all those things, and they have achieved certain amount of success in imbibing in them awareness about all these things. Does that answer your question, Sadhna ji? For us to lost connection.
Mm,
Um, yeah, Sadhna ji, you can answer on your chat box if possible.
Hello.
Namaste, Dilip ji.
Good evening, madam. Are you getting me? Okay.
Yes.
My one question is that actually I belong to northeastern India, and there are several ITK regarding on your agriculture or household or so many fields, medicinal plants also. But these are not actually by name of any community, specific community or any individual. So regarding patent, what we can do for that? Suppose it is not by name of any community, suppose for their some spondylitis or like so many fracture or those things they treat, the healer, local healers, they also treat. But for those patent, what we can do from our side?
See, first thing we have to understand is, as I told you, traditional knowledge per se is non-patentable subject matter. Okay, so if it is an information that is already available in the text and already known, available in public domain, you can't patent it because it is known information. But when you come to community healers and look at the information, it may not be codified. They may not have that information available anywhere, and it may be novel information not available in text. Okay, that is a possibility. The kind of things that you're saying. Now, what you are saying is, Kadi, you cannot identify the community or the person, right? The individual. Okay, so that is the challenge in the traditional knowledge arena, so to speak, because that is why when I said the patenting thing, what we can do, a lot of community people are working in this area also, like the National Innovation Foundation, the network I talked about. They work with communities and okay. So if you have a community, even if it consists of 10 people, 12 people, there is no bar to putting 10 names in a patent. Okay. So they all can be applicants, they all can be inventors, and you can get the patent right as long as you're able to satisfy the criteria of the patentability. That is, that it is novel, it has inventive step, and it has the uh, industrial applicability. That is, it is of some use. Okay, but where in cases when you don't know what the community, whose it is or this, I believe that knowledge will most likely be in public domain. So then patenting of that such subject matter may not be possible at all. Does that answer your question, Sapna?
Before we go to the next question, I should announce that. So I have shared the Google Drive link where day by day I am going to upload PPT and recording. So please keep the Google Drive link, which I also shared today in the chat box. Please keep this link. You will, yeah, I will update day by day, and you will have recording and PPTs and other necessary information. So next.
Usually we can't hear you.
Yes. Dr. K. Dhanalakshmi ji, could you please ask your question? Next. Next. Hari Krishna ji,
Yes, yes,
could you please ask your question?
yes, yes, sir. Namaste,
Yes.
ma'am.
Please proceed.
Are you able to hear me, ma'am?
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Ma'am, I just have a doubt. This is just a recent finding, but I just wanted to know, in the point of view of patency, how this is viewed. So I just wanted to check it with you. For example, in a temple, which I know, we have had a very beautiful the history or the Puranic history of the temple, which is actually depicted in the mural paintings. So this is quite old, and they have documented it. Nobody has documented actually, but it was like it's in a temple. What you say, in a part of a temple architecture, basically. So this actually was made into a book by a foreign author, and he has actually like made each and every painting. He has put it into a different pages and presented well, and he has taken the copyrights and he has presented as a book. But today, if we have to do anything relevant to that particular work or take any reference, why do we have to go to the author? Because it is a heritage and a legacy, and how can the patent go completely to a foreign author of an Indian origin and work and heritage? So this is something I wanted to ask you.
See, the thing we have to understand, this will be a copyright only. There is no patent involved here. But the thing is, the images that you're talking about, as far as I understand, it's already existing images in the temple, right?
Yes.
The copyright content of that text, that cannot be for those images, okay, which is already known and available and can be seen by hundreds of people. So
Okay.
if there's any copyright, it has to be something original from the author, that is his intellectual, and that has to come from him. So in case there is such an information, that may be in the textual part. So if we are talking about the images and the pictures and the depictions, if
Okay.
they are depictions of that particular thing, see, if he has done something to the image also, like for instance, even in photography, if you have had some kind of novelty in that through your photographic techniques, that might be a subject matter of a copyright. But this particular image that you're talking about is simply of a temple which is there in India. I don't think that is subject matter of copyright. Okay, the book and the text and whatever he has written there, that will only be the subject matter of copyright.
Okay, only the information part and not the data collected.
Yes, not the data.
Ma'am, and one more doubt. You also, while explaining in the beginning, you had put manuscripts into secondary category. May I know why like that? Because manuscripts are like, I thought it comes under the primary category, because most of the things actually we have got from our ancestors and elders. So I just wanted you to brief on that.
I just meant secondary. Why? Because who is the primary one? It's usually a person. Okay. So
Okay.
even if it is converted into a manuscript, it is written by someone. So that becomes secondary because
Okay.
it has been done by someone. So the person who did it, that will be the primary. Once
Okay.
it is recorded, that becomes secondary. That's why I put manuscripts in the secondary category, because all those are manuscripts, is in some ancient format. And for us, so to speak, that is still an unknown category. But in the first place, somebody would have recorded it. The person who recorded would be the primary source, and as it is recorded in the manuscript, it will be a secondary.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Usually, you're on mute. Mona Gupta.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have one question. Probably, I do not know whether it would be apt to ask it or not. but still I'm so curious, I want to ask. Recently, we have attended one 6-day face-to-face program of the IK division, which was at Delhi University. I just wanted to know, how do we integrate Indian knowledge system? I am an assistant professor at an education college at Gurugram University. I just want to know, I'm basically preparing pupil teachers. So I want to know, how do I integrate this traditional knowledge system, and how do I, tell them, my basic subject is mathematics and my specialization is education. I've heard about Leelavati also. Like, there is something, there a lot of work has been done there. So just want to integrate that. Could you please enlighten me on that?
Yeah, I think Piyush will be the right person to answer this. If Piyush can respond to her, because the IKS matters I am not much aware of.
Yes. So, ma'am, first of all, we are trying to bring those things which you are talking about in the syllabus of school education and higher education. That's the channel where we are working through UGC, which through UGC, student will get information. But as a teacher, as a professor, what you can do? You can promote your students, and if they're the students of mathematics, so they can take the our ancient Ganesh Shastram and how was the paradigm of the same topic which they are studying from our modern schooling system. But we are trying, we hope within 1 or 2, within 1 year, those information, every subject. So IKS is not a subject, every subject is related to IKS. So if we think from mathematics as a subject, so there is our indigenous paradigm. For chemistry, so every for we have Rasayana Shastram for chemistry, then Ayurveda for treatment. So every subject is associated with traditional knowledge and Indian knowledge systems. So I request you personally, you can encourage your students up to through the government. Those Indian knowledge system will be introduced in the syllabus. Is it clear, ma'am?
Yes.
Then, Namaste Pinky Banerjee ji. Could you please ask your question?
Hello? Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you. Please go on.
Okay. So, ma'am, what I've understood so far is that there is no proper legal course for enforcement of traditional knowledge. The route preferred is patent and through GI, most appropriate forms to get it enforced. Now, I, as a very novice individual, would like to understand that how far are we to have a proper legislation in place with regards to traditional knowledge in India, or at least a global framework?
To answer that question, it's rather difficult because we did have twice a TK bill tabled in the parliament. One decades ago, and nothing came of it. Even the second time it was tabled, I think even as recent as a year ago. But of course, the problem is not in the intention to have it done, but the thing is that this is a very complex subject matter. Okay, so a lot of things, there is an interplay of rights of the people with any right that you would give to a person who is seeking something like an intellectual property right. There has to be a balance. Then the livelihood has to be protected. there is so many aspects to having any kind of protection for traditional knowledge. I will throw some light on this tomorrow because I'll be explaining how the things are going on at the international level. But to specifically answer your question on how far are we, I cannot answer that question because each time we start, we reach nowhere. And the discussions that are going on at the global level is 2 decades now. So although we're trying at convergence, but it is not really satisfactory convergence, and there's still a lot of tussle among the various countries. Okay. So
Okay, ma'am.
we come to a conclusion or some sort of thing that I can give you a time.
Oh, okay. Understood, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for your time, ma'am.
Namaste, Dr. Ravi Narayanji. Could you please ask your question?
Good evening, Namaste.
Really, we got disconnected.
Yes, I have to unmute him.
Hello.
Yes, Raviji. Yes, please proceed.
Good evening, ma'am. Namaste. Actually, I would like to know: is there like mathematics, Ganesha Shastra? Is there for management? Is there any traditional subject like management? Is there anything? Is there? I would like to know. Actually, I am not aware of it.
I do believe there are tech for management, so we were never without any such information in the past. It may be not called management in the strict sense of the term, but you would have heard of even Chanakya Niti and things like that, where it was major resource management only, and even Arthashastra, I think, has some aspects of management in it. So there are very many texts. But if you want this information, maybe we'll have to go back and look and give you a list if possible.
Yeah, if possible. Thank you very much. It's really I must appreciate to IKS and CSIR to has a lovely session, and it is really very informative, and it is the knowledge should I can say it is a knowledge tourism, and knowledge should be said to each and every nook and corner. So thank you very much, ma'am.
Namaste, Gopika ji.
Good evening,
Could you
ma'am.
please-
Namaste, ma'am.
Yes.
I am Gopika and I am undergraduate student pursuing BSc Integral Psychology. And I have a question. Since in our curriculum we try to integrate traditional aspects of psychology with modern psychology, I have this doubt that from the existing traditional texts, as researchers, people are finding innovative applications to suit contemporary needs. Can such applications be patentable? Because they are not the same as what is mentioned in the text.
First, you have to see whether it is patentable subject matter at all. Okay. In a general way, I will answer your question because psychology is a subject which is probably not patentable subject matter. Ways of treating people or a person is not patentable subject matter as per the Indian Patent Act. Okay. But to talk in a general manner, any sort of innovation or additive in an additive manner that you have worked over the existing knowledge that is already known or available, that would be patentable in the sense that there is a new innovation in it. Okay, so integrative medicine and integrative kind of research that goes on with the old and the new, that certainly can be patentable subject matter provided it satisfies these criteria of patentability. Possible.
Sorry. Namaste, Priyanka Shinde ji. Could you please ask your question?
Yes, I'm Priyanka Shinde. I want to know that if we have done research on Ayurveda with the help of Sanskrit material or all other our documents, then how we publish that research in which journal, or is that patentable? How to do with that?
Regarding journals, I think you have many journals which publish research on Ayurveda. As I also mentioned, there is an Indian Journal of Traditional Knowledge, but Ayurveda per se, there are many journals. Okay, maybe if you give me some time, I can look and share some names with you. But there are journals. Now, if you talk about patentability, my answer is the same as the previous one. Okay, provided the research has innovation, it is not same as what is written in the text, because often what we notice is that one plant for a certain disease is known and another plant for another condition is known, or is known for the same condition, and all the person who is patenting does is that creates an additive effect or mixes the two things and say it works for both these things. No, that it is known for one condition and another condition is already known. So just mixing merely the two things will not be patentable subject matter. So all these things are already barred under the patentability criteria. That is, they are non-patentable subject matter. So provided you are able to show that it has some new effect or it has some extraordinary effect over what is already known, until and unless you will not be able to patent that information. Okay, it has to be novel, inventive, that is not known to somebody. Like when we speak about inventive, it usually means that it is not obvious to a person skilled in the art, in the sense that a normal person who knows about that subject matter should not be able to arrive at the same conclusion as you. Okay, if that is the case, and there is that kind of additive effect or the many manifold effect, then you would be able to get a patent. Thank you.
Namaste, Sujata ji. Could you please ask your question?
Good evening, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes,
Please proceed.
ma'am, I'm Sujata. I'm like speaking from Chennai. I'm a PhD student, and my area of research is intellectual property rights, and I'm focusing on misappropriation of genetic resources and traditional knowledge, as in how effective the disclosure of origin requirement would be to against misappropriation. So, the developing countries, as such, they're asking for a amendment in TRIPS regarding the disclosure of requirement. So what other means of ways can the Indian government especially do against misappropriation, like bringing a sui generis system, or maybe mixing traditional knowledge with geographical indications? And does it, maybe the indigenous communities, maybe they can use these indigenous traditional plans or traditional knowledge, with that they can be the owners of patents, which would be much more beneficial. So what else is there? And I would also request, like, is there a way I could contact you, ma'am, for further any questions regarding this?
My email ID is on the presentation, so you can write anytime, not a problem. But the main means that you already mentioned yourself, okay, the documentation part which you mentioned, TKDL is a government effort, okay. So this is an effort between the Ministry of Science and Technology, CSIR, that as in we are, and with the Ministry in collaboration with the Ministry of Ayush. So this is an effort, and this has significantly made an impact in the area of preventing misappropriation. As I told you, we submit third-party observations, so many of these patents get rejected, amended, and so on and so forth. Yes. So documenting and creating a database or a body of prior art matter will certainly help. But again, that has to be in a manner that is understandable and available to people. Okay. Yes, the other thing you already mentioned was that, empowering the people, tribal or the indigenous people, is one thing. There are many organizations, non-governmental organizations working with them. Empowering and creating awareness will go a long way in telling them that they are not to share their information freely, okay? Yes. In a manner that it gets exploited. See, there is no harm in sharing this information, but they should not get exploited. That is the primary thing. And if the matter or the knowledge that they have is patentable subject matter, in the sense it is not known, not publicly available, never been published, yes, there is still potential for IP creation.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
the people who own the knowledge, or who are aware of the knowledge, can themselves be the applicants and the inventors.
Ma'am,
But
we
they
do
need
have,
someone to help them. Yeah.
I mean, we do have all those systems in place, but so far we have only one benefit sharing which has happened, which is that ROK Pacha Sanjeevani. So there is not much more else which is happening.
Even that's not the most successful example, although it is
True.
finally, because when the whole thing happened, it was a very complex thing. So as on date, they do have some trust created in their name, and there is some money coming in. And then when the research went beyond what their knowledge was already there, it has sort of gone beyond the tribe. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. We need to have some legal regime in place. Lot of attempts are happening, and lot of efforts are going on in that direction. So maybe in a course of time, we would be able to get something. And once that happens, at least some sort of a relief would be there in such cases. Although the National Biodiversity Authority has successfully, if you see on their site, there are some examples of benefit sharing. It may not be in the quantum of the Kani tribe, but small cases of benefit sharing you will find on the site. You can go and have a look.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. The program was very insightful. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, it's 5:25. So, should we close here? And if there is any query, please feel to contact ma'am and to us also. We'll try our best. अस्तु तर्हि मन्त्रेण समापयामः. अस्तु, we'll close. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. हरिः ओम्. Thank you, madam. Thank you to all participants.
Thanks to all the participants. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
See you tomorrow. We'll join tomorrow again.